Welcome to the Vegan Transformation. I'm your host, Angela Crawford. I'm a psychologist, a transformational coach, and a vegan educator. And I'm passionate about sharing the power of a plant-powered vegan lifestyle for transforming our lives in mind, body, and spirit, and also for creating a kinder, healthier, more sustainable, and more compassionate world. And I really hope to, inspire you wherever you are on your veg journey, that you'd have tips and tools so that you can thrive emotionally and feel your best while you're living or moving toward a plant-powered lifestyle. And today I'm really excited to introduce you to our guest, Chef Lauren. And Lauren, can you say your last name for me so I make sure to say it correctly?
Yes, it's D'Agostino.
D'Agostino, okay. Well, welcome, Chef Lauren. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
There will be a lot of time for the guests to get to know more about you because we're going to be doing an interview and, we'll be sharing about your work, especially towards the end. So, but I appreciate you being here. Chef Lauren met with me about a year or so ago or a little more for an interview for my book research. I'm writing a book on the transformational impact of a vegan lifestyle. And she really inspired me. You really inspired me with your story and your energy and, kind of your positivity. So I just felt that you were a great example that I wanted to be able to share, your journey and story here. So I appreciate you meeting with me.
Yeah, and likewise, I appreciate that feedback so much. It's so often, I think, when we're consistently sharing our own story, you feel a little bit like a broken record. So it's always nice to hear that that it lands in the way that that I intend.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's always helpful to start out with hearing the journey that led you to vegetarianism, veganism, being plant-based. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I'll try to keep it quick, just give the highlights here. But I first explored a vegetarian lifestyle when I was in college. I had been curious about taking classes on sustainability and green building and just anything that taught me more about living with more respect for the planet, my body, the animals, of course. I just kind of followed that natural curiosity. And so my junior year, I decided I was going to move to just vegetarian. I thought, okay, vegetarian, I think that's something that I can kind of work toward. And I remember being very graceful with myself that if I felt like it wasn't possible in any given meal to avoid animal products, it was no sweat, but I was making every effort to include more vegetarian dishes, more health forward things, more whole foods. And I started to feel great. I started to look great as a result. My skin cleared up, and I will never forget, we came back to our senior year, and all of a sudden, even my roommates and they're like, Lauren, people are just drawn to you. Like, what is happening? What are you doing differently? And I didn't realize it then, but when I went vegetarian again, many years later, and kind of started to explore more of a plant-based and vegan diet, I now understand what that was. And I think it was just truly kind of that energetic shift that people don't often consider when they are kind of weighing the pros and cons or the curiosity that they might have to go more in a plant-based or even fully vegan direction. Just all those extra benefits on our mental wellness, on our emotional well-being, our spiritual and energetic bodies, all of it. When you're eating more foods that come from the planet, it helps to make you a more human, I guess, if that makes sense. Like putting less fake things into our bodies just helps us to be less fake humans. And I don't mean in like a surface layer kind of way, really more just on how everything just works better, I have found. Anyway, so that was sort of the phase one of the journey for me. And then I ate more, kind of animal products in between, I would say, like after graduating college, just kind of, seasons of life, I guess, sort of going back and forth there. But I always thought maybe that I would find my way back to it. And so I found myself living down in Florida. And I remember working in a bakery, eating cookies and bread and just like, not eating a lot of whole plant-based foods. And I just remember this feeling of numbness, of just like such disconnection from my intuition, from the planet, from the seasons. Obviously, living in Florida, there's not really much of a seasonal change. Like I just remember that feeling, and I had the idea that maybe the first way to start to feel some of that connection again would be to change what I was eating, and I was right. So I slowly started to explore the transition to a more plant-based diet a little more intentionally that second time around. So for me, that included, what's my lowest hanging fruit here? What's the easiest thing for me to do right now? And for me personally, that happens to be to avoid red meat products, right? So I didn't buy it at the store, I didn't order it from a restaurant, and I didn't tackle the next category for myself until I felt that I had really integrated the change that I had made kind of in that phase one. And then I proceeded kind of through all the different categories of foods that someone on a fully vegan diet would avoid, saving eggs and dairy for last, just because, again, kind of moving the needle to vegetarian first, or even pescatarian first, and then to vegetarian. And then if it still feels good, to move all the way to vegan, and just sort of seeing how your body's responding, how your digestion's improving, just any kind of changes. I think it's so much more impactful when your body is telling you that yes, this is working for you. It's so much more helpful to let that be your guide, and the thing that keeps you connected to why you're making those choices every day, instead of just making the mental shift of this is what I want to do intellectually because it makes sense for me, for ethical reasons, for environmental reasons, even for health reasons. It just takes your body a little more time to catch up, and then you don't need as much willpower. You've got all the motivation because you love how you feel. And that was kind of my experience with it, and just all the other benefits that have come from it have been so surprising to me, and we'll probably touch on those in a little bit. But that's kind of been my experience, and I've always had kind of a natural love of cooking, and pursued pastry initially professionally, and then had to just pivot into plants because I loved how I felt so much, and I felt like I wanted to help other people do the same.
Oh, that's awesome. How long have you been fully plant-based?
I'd say about 7 years or so. Yeah, and I remember too, getting into making that change. I wanted to be slow and intentional with it, but really the main goal was to connect more with kind of my internal pilot light, that intuition, that just that sense of really knowing what my body wants and needs. So I told myself, if ever I get into a season of life or some kind of health challenge or concern presents, that if animal products are suggested to include back into my diet again, I'll remain open to it. That was my personal, kind of attitude for it. I didn't ever want to be in this box and find myself really mentally unhappy or really physically unwell because of what I was or was not including on my diet. And so I think that is really important for people to remember, that it doesn't have to be such a box that you find yourself in. More plants on more plates more often is best for everybody, whether that means you're 100% vegan for the rest of time, or that you're just playing with it for a season to see how you feel, and then you kind of find your happy place. I think everyone will be all the better for it, and our planet included. So I find that philosophy to be a lot more inspiring for people to at least give it a chance, where otherwise they're completely closed off to it. And I find that a lot in my work, and that was kind of the reason for approaching it in that way.
Otherwise, it was sometimes overwhelming for people to consider, like, oh, I have to make this big change, and it feels like too much, or it's too overwhelming. Is that what?
Yeah, exactly. And even, when you think of this as a lifestyle shift, not only is it the types of foods that you're eating and preparing in your home, but it's what you're ordering when you go out to a restaurant. It's how you're socializing with your family at your holiday table. It's so much more than just the food on our fork. It's cultural, it's social, it's tied to memories and emotions. Like, there's so much to factor in. And unfortunately, when we go food shopping, we have access to so many foods that are not really foods, that if you just took all those away, and if we were left just with real foods that are real fuel for our real human bodies, people would be shocked at the shifts that they would notice. And it wouldn't take very much time for our bodies to really start to get back on track.
Well, yeah. So maybe like, let's touch on that a little bit, so you becoming plant-based, what were your personal changes in, physical well-being and emotional well-being? And you also touched on spiritual. What were some of the shifts you experienced in eating the healthy living plants?
Yeah. So I felt that I physically kind of was able to like start to glow again. I kind of felt like I had this very like lifeless skin. I was having kind of some skin challenges, I remember at the time anyway. I felt also, and I noticed now in photos, I looked a little bit puffy. Again, just from sort of all those inflammatory foods, the dairy I was eating, even the gluten, the sugar. Sugar is a huge one. Even, if viewers take nothing else away from this, is just to watch kind of where those hidden sugars are, and just those hidden, those other additives. Like there's so much added to our food. So eating those real foods, the ones that don't come with this snazzy marketing campaign and all that, jazzy slogans and logos and all of that. Real foods are perfectly packaged with everything that our body needs, especially if they're seasonal foods. Really, Mother Nature is the smartest there is. So the fact that we try to kind of skirt around the rules and laws of nature by eating asparagus all year long, when really it has kind of a finite season where it's really wonderful, the spring mainly being when that is, because it's so astringent. It helps our bodies clean out from the cold, slow winter to get ready for the light, bright summer, right? And I live in New England, so eating salads as my New Year's resolution in January, I'm going to be cold all January, right? So I think that was kind of another thing that I noticed as well. Is like when you eat more seasonally and locally, not only does it taste better, but it's better for you. And it just helps you to get, I think, that next level deeper into really aligning with nature's cycles. I get sick far less often than I used to. My hair, skin, and nails, all those beauty bits, they get the vitamins that they need now, which is kind of a good indication too, if your body is getting all of the nutrients that it needs. Hair, skin, and nails are the first kind of category that don't get those nutrients when your body needs what little nutrients you might be getting. So if you're on a supplement for hair, skin, and nails, or you notice anything in any of those categories, that could be a good indication to kind of take a look at what you're eating. And then, emotionally too, I just kind of felt, I felt like more emotions became accessible to me. And that might sound really strange, but I just kind of felt the range of emotions, more specifically the positive ones, just really were able to start to light up again for me. Again, because I was eating foods that were grown by the sun, and the freshness and the moisture of the rain, and just grown from like just that brilliance of the soil. And I mean, it's just so, the way that the whole system is designed is truly inspiring. And just the fact that we get to participate in that and let that become part of us just by putting it on the end of our fork, I think is so, I mean, it's like magic, really, when you kind of think of it that way. And I wish that more people would give it more of a chance, because, it's life-changing, truly. And you can make it your own so easily these days. The benefit of technology, we have so many amazing teachers and tools on the internet that just,
What's an example of some of the meals that, you really like, or that your body really thrives with? Just like maybe what's a typical day like in terms of what you might eat?
Yeah. So lately for breakfast, I've been enjoying kind of like a warm, savory breakfast bowl. I find that my blood sugar and kind of the rest of the day really goes a lot more smoothly when I start with a savory, high protein breakfast. So for example, I'll batch cook quinoa, right? The idea of cooking once and eating hopefully at least 3 times, maybe more, quinoa or lentils. And then I'll just have some vegetables that were part of the batch roast for the week or whatever, some greens, like spinach is the green that I have currently in the fridge. Sometimes it'll be baby kale. Sometimes it'll be real kale, or a combination of any of those. And then I like to use the Just Egg product, but if folks listening are still including eggs on their diet, use a real egg. Hopefully you can start to shift to maybe a locally sourced egg, right? And just kind of like looking to make sure that your purchasing decisions, because we vote with our dollars, like make sure that those line up with your personal values, right? And then maybe you try the Just Egg substitute. Maybe you try one of those recipes for like a mung bean egg replacement or something. Or maybe you're a person who still, finds that real eggs suit you just fine. Like no worries. Again, it's the more plants in that breakfast bowl. That's what I've really been loving. I've also been doing some seed cycling. So that's the idea of getting like seeds, ground seeds kind of added to one meal a day. For women, especially kind of to just support our natural cycle, right? Our own internal nature's rhythm, to really get us the things we need to be supportive of our process. And that's been really great too. But I also am a really big proponent or advocate for something I call food joy. And that is the idea of eating for happiness. And that's not a green light to just eat whatever junk food you want, but just listening to your body to say, okay, well, tonight for dinner, I had planned to cook pasta, but I don't really feel like having a heavy pasta. Today, I think what really is going to excite me for dinner is tacos or something, So being able to really just like hit all those other areas that I mentioned, besides just the macronutrients, of a healthy meal, when you can hit it on many more aspects, I think it allows you to stay the course on a plant-based plan for longer, because you're actually emotionally happy, satisfied. You're mentally still engaged with it, and you're not, fighting off the minutia of your plant-based plan to fight another day, like this thing that's torturous for you. So yeah, meals with the food joy lens is something that I've been really
awesome. Well, I wanted to read to you a quote that you had when you had done a survey for my research a little over a year ago. And, when I asked what are the most positive changes in your emotional and spiritual well-being associated with being vegan? And you wrote, I feel like an entirely new person. The frequency with which my body vibrates is exponentially raised because of eating living foods. When you finally understand this idea and then actually feel it working, you never want to eat any other way again. I feel closer to my purpose, more authentically myself, more connected to my emotions and those of others, and more aligned with nature, as we are extensions of nature herself. It seems only fitting that we eat responsibly to help this brilliant system thrive. Oh, wow. That was a beautiful
quote. Pretty good.
I just wondered if you had any thoughts or reactions, hearing back your words.
Yeah, that's like, honestly, hearing it, I'm like, wow, that's like something I should turn into a poster. Like, how inspiring is that message to really, and I always encourage people and the students that are part of the programs that I offer, I always encourage them to get clear on, why does this matter to you? It's not just about, I heard it on, you would never hear it on the news that going plant-based is a good thing, but I heard, my neighbor or my whomever, right? Someone sent me this article, and going plant-based is something that I'm now curious about. But if you don't get clear on why it is you want to live longer or healthier or whatever, you might not be able to stay the course for as long as you would like. And then it will just unfortunately become one of those diets you tried that one time, add it to the pile of things that didn't work. But when you get clear on, say, for example, hey, I'm 5 years away from retirement and I've worked really hard in my industry and I'm proud of where I've come from. I can't wait to enjoy my retirement with my spouse and my grandkids. Well, that's the motivation to reduce your inflammation response in your body and start to eat some real foods, or a younger person. I'm not quite sure of what my purpose is. I feel really not aligned to my body and my intuition because currently I'm not eating real foods. So by eating more real foods, I hope to discover my purpose and really leave a mark on the people in my circle and really make something of my one life on earth. It just kind of depends where you are and whatever's important to you, but making that clear from the beginning, almost having it as your guiding light for the journey, because it's going to get hard. It's going to get tempting. People who don't understand why you're changing are going to question you. They're going to offer their comments, even though you didn't ask. You're going to tell them that you're going plant-based, and they're going to tell you that they could never do that, but that wasn't your question. You're just kind of asking for support and encouragement, or it's interesting. So I would also say, and this is probably something too that I could share a bit more, but people who have people in their lives who have gone more plant-based, or who express interest in going vegan, or exploring anything in between that might work for them, the best way to be supportive is to ask questions, to be excited about recipes that they make, offer kind feedback, of how the recipe could improve for them being able to share in it together, instead of kind of hitting them with all of the typical questions that folks have heard and have hopefully dodged away. It's just, it can be a different conversation, I truly believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're touching on too, that when we eat differently than the people around us, first of all, having that strong why helps, because, we're sort of being a leader. And if you look at the people around us in our culture, most are eating like everyone else, which isn't very healthfully. Most of us kind of may not even fully realize how unhealthy kind of the standard Western diet can be, with, fast food, processed food, excess meat and dairy. So yes, we need that strong why, so that we can stay true to our mission, to eat healthier, to eat compassionately, to eat sustainably. And then, I guess we need to have ways that we can handle those social situations. Is there anything like that you found helpful early on your plant-based vegan journey, and handling like you maybe being the only plant-based person at a meal? How did you deal with that?
Yeah. I think it's taken a couple of things. Number one, you kind of need to sort of be prepared with your toolbox when you're kind of making this lifestyle shift, and you almost need to develop a little bit of armor to just expect that people are going to maybe give you some flack about the changes that you're making, and just to brush it off, to just let it just roll right off your back, and just simply say to them, this works for me for right now, or I invite you to try this dish that I made, that I brought to this family holiday gathering. If you don't want to try it, it's no worries. This is what I'm going to eat, and this is what's in it, and whatever, and leave it at that, right? And the best way to influence people around you is to lead by example, to not be pushy, to not criticize the choices that they are making, rather to simply be so thrilled with the choices you are making that they can't help but ask what you're doing, because now they want to be more like you, because they see how your emotions have changed. They see how your skin has cleared up. They see how now that you're just glowing, oh my gosh, and now they want that too. And yeah, I think it's just, I don't know, one of those things, right? That if you find yourself curious about this, you touched on so many like pockets and communities of people that maybe aren't even aware of this way of eating, or of the benefits and things. So if you're someone who is in a community where it's not that popular or common, and you're curious about it, follow that curiosity. Be that leader, be that light, because your community needs you. They don't know that they do, but they will. Right? And just being welcoming, being inclusive, being encouraging feels so much better for you as the person who's inclined to do this and then share this. And it feels better for the people who are on the other side of that too, to start to kind of inch their way towards the plant-based party on their own time. And I have plenty of family members and friends who questioned me so much in the beginning, but eventually, because of the context of their own life and their own health, they've found their way to a more plant-based path on their own time, because they finally got clear on why they wanted and had to make the changes that they did. And they did their research, and they were like really plugged in and connected to it. But when it comes from an outside source, or kind of like a criticism from somebody else, it doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to remember that if we're on either side of the conversation. And I think that insight, even as I'm hearing it coming out of my mouth, it comes from, as you mentioned in that quote, it comes from just now my emotional awareness, I think, of kind of how this whole shift and conversation could happen. So yeah. Nature speaks through you when you become a channel for her messages by eating her foods.
So well, we just have a couple more minutes. Can you share a little bit about the work that you now do, how your work has shifted, and also just how people could find out more about you? What's the contact?
Yeah, happy to. So my business is on a mission to get more plants on more plates, as you probably gathered from this conversation.
Mhm.
Whether you find yourself landing in a fully plant-based position or getting close to that, everybody benefits from more plants. And so I do all of my work under the umbrella of Chef Lauren's Table. And I'm local to New Hampshire, as I mentioned. So for folks in New England, I do offer a prepared plant-based meal service locally for folks who just need a little bit of help letting their bodies adjust. As I mentioned, sometimes it can be really overwhelming to learn the skill, to make the time, to do all the things, like just to give your body the chance, to start to communicate with you. So that's a really great solution for folks locally. But for people who are not local and will just interact with me digitally, I have a program called Kitchen Mindset Lab with Chef Lauren. That is a supportive membership program. I'm working on a shorter, more approachable course, like a mini course, teaching people kind of like initially kind of your first blast into plant-based with me as your guide. That will be available soon. So right now the membership model is 12 months of access to on-demand video lessons that are 10 minutes or less because people are busy. But in that program, you can learn how to make plant-based versions of some of your favorite foods that you eat for food joy. So for example, mine are nachos, tacos, pizzas, soups and salads and power bowls, ice cream, but it's all plant-based. It's all plant-based. And when you realize that you can eat all the foods that you love just in a different way, it's like, gosh, why would you want to do anything else? And when you can realize that it's not difficult, just a little different to cook and eat plant-based, it's like, oh, well, maybe this doesn't have to be so hard. So that's kind of the nature of my work and what folks will see. And it's got a really supportive mindset element and some group coaching available for folks too, that really just benefit from having that person in their pocket that they can just communicate with, kind of your customer support person for the journey. Like when you make a phone call to some service and all you get is the computer talking back to you, right? And all you want to do is just talk to a real person.
Yeah.
That's what this service can be for people. And I'm really excited to welcome more students into the program. It's really made an impact on the beta group that's gone through the program. And I'm excited also to share it with people who work in the wellness industry. It's a great tool for dietitians, nutritionists, functional medicine doctors, because it gives their patients the support that they need on the front lines of where they're making these changes. They'll get the expertise and all of the things that they need from these people that they might be working with for whatever, issue brought them into the office in the first place. But where the most challenge tends to be for people is in the grocery store, in their own kitchen, when they're out to eat or traveling. And so, so the program really aims to support people there. And you can find all of that information on my website, cheflaurenstable.com. I'm also on social media at Chef Lauren's Table. So Chef Lauren's Table everywhere. There's a place for everybody to have a chat with me. And I'm excited for people to welcome into my world, and hopefully as a as a byproduct of the interview here, and to share my thoughts with the readers of your book and everything. It's just been so wonderful to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, Chef Lauren. It was great to see you again. And so many people new on this journey need that kind of support. And I loved, discovering how delicious plant-based food actually is. For me, my taste buds and everything expanded once I became plant-based. Just the foods I ate became so much more actually interesting and flavorful. I just didn't know what was possible. So to have someone like you to help people discover that is awesome.
Yes. I'm glad you touched on that. That's something I noticed as well. It's like my tongue was coated before from all the processed ingredients and the sugar and just everything that's hiding in our processed foods, that now, kind of to your point, apples taste so much sweeter. And when I eat carrots now, I can taste that they're a little sweet. Even celery, raw celery tastes a little salty. Like it's just amazing. You're so right about the flavors that really open up, and just how satisfying it can be to taste, but also to feel your natural point of fullness, without needing to go take a nap or something is really quite wonderful.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners and viewers. Thanks for listening to the Vegan Transformation. And I hope that if this is helpful for you, that you'll come back again, that you'll subscribe, and that you'll share this with others. Have a great rest of the day.